Okay, let's do the following. I did some off-stream stuff, like renaming everything. And I wrote this documentation. So maybe you want to read this. This function deals with now, why would I even explain anything? There's 0 concurrent viewers, according to YouTube. I don't know. YouTube is so inaccurate or unclear. On one hand it says 0 concurrent viewers, and in the other pane it says 1 concurrent viewer. Excusez-moi. Okay, then read it for yourself, please. So this is, well, I can read it. I can say it shortly, like this is about, okay, now both say 0. I'm not explaining anything. I'm getting here. Maybe I should run CTEX again. I guess I need to store this as well, also as a vector. Thank you, Ian. Oh, sorry. Lowency. IONC. Adding a flat map to convert the factory characteristic key to the texture update request. Yep. So kind of the same thing as here, I guess. First have to find it. Because it's very much the same thing. So now not to descriptor but to texture. Key to texture. LGL, hey man, welcome back. I did a lot of renames, by the way, so if things look different. This is now called texture update request instead of provides update. And a needs update I did rename to descriptor update info. So I think I handled the descriptor update info. Previously the needs update. So now I'm going to handle the other received data. The textures that must be updated. They are stored in the M factory characteristic, also renamed. Before I used the factory range, I renamed it to factory characteristic, which is just a pair of the factory and the characteristic range IDs used as a key. And I'm going to find here, or we have an iterator that is being set to the first element in this vector. And then while we did not reach the end, the descriptor must be renamed to texture. Yes, this is NeoVim. Now NeoVim. I don't think you can see the difference. It's more about the console and the syntax highlighting that I'm using, which is custom, and the font. LGL is learning English from me. En ik ben geen eens Engels mezelf. So I'll take that as a compliment. Okay, so we come in here. We cast it to the update to the actual underlying object, which is a texture update request. I set my iterator to the beginning of my vector, and then while the iterator is not pointing to the end, that's the same comment as above. While the key ID is less than, well, not the key ID is less than factory characteristic ID of the texture update request. I don't think we have that. So I'll have to add this function. That would be this function. And I have to add it to the texture update request. Oh no, I missed this one in the renaming. Characteristic. So I renamed factory range to factory characteristic. There was another one, factory range. A load of other ones. Dude. I'm still there. Okay, so now this function works. Factory characteristic ID is being returned. I might as well add the other accessor for it. Texture const return texture. So we are here. While the ID in the vector is not less than, you only have less than, you cannot do larger or equal. The factory ID, factory characteristic ID of the thing that we are looking for, and then, well, actually then we break. I'll explain it with my comments here. I think I have enough viewers now, 10. I'll explain the structure of this function so people can follow it. So here we have a factory characteristic key to descriptor, but the idea is the same. This is a vector storing a pair of factor characteristic key and factor characteristic data, where the key exists of two parts: factory characteristic ID and the consecutive range, and the factory characteristic ID exists of a pipeline factory index and a characteristic range index. This is the primary sorting key and this is the secondary sorting key, and if these are equal, then finally we use the consecutive range to sort them. So that is the internal structure of this key here, and they are sorted, you know, from small to large. The stored consecutive ranges for equal factory characteristic IDs may not overlap, but there may be gaps. Searching can therefore be done by looking for the first element in factory characteristic key to descriptor that is not less than the key we're looking for. And because they become larger and larger. And then checking that the key is not less than the element we found. Now nobody understands it, but now here we get with an example with numbers. Consider we have a list with IDs 3, 5 and 8 and we want to insert 6. Obviously, since it is in incremental order, the 6 must go between the 5 and the 8. Then we loop until not x is less than 6. Yeah, so 3 is less than 6, 5 is less than 6, but 8 is not less than 6. That's the point we found the 8. And then we insert before the 8. Or if we wanted to insert a 5, here we would loop, we must find the 5. And we would loop until not 5 is less than 5, which is obviously true. 5 is not less than 5. Finally, if we wanted to insert a 9, we would loop until the iterator equals the end. And then inserting before the end means that the 9 will be inserted after the 8. Yes, so the exact same way, then here's the code where I just copied it and I renamed descriptor to texture. So this is the same code. So what I'm doing is until, while the iterator is not the end yet, I wait until not the ID in the vector is less than the ID of the thing that we're looking for. For example, this would break if we found the 8, because 8 is not less than 6, and therefore with the exclamation mark in front of it, this is true, and we break. Or if we are looking for the 5, then 5 is not less than 5, and therefore we break. We would never stop here for whatever we are testing in the vector. It's never less than 9, so we would continue incrementing until the end. That's how we search here. And then iter points to the first element that is larger. And then we do a test here. If it is equal to end, and that would be the case where we were looking for a 9 and there was no 9. Or when what we want to insert is less than what we found. Or in this case, if 6 is less than 8, then we did not find the 6. But if we were trying to find the 5, then we would have stopped at the moment we found the 5, and 5 is still not less than 5 here. So then we do not do this, and then we get here. So we do get here when we did not have that key, that factory characteristic key. We get here when that is not in the vector already. In that case, we just want to insert a new element, and well in front of the iterator. The iterator is pointing to the first larger one, and therefore we inserted a new one in front of iter. And we do that by container.insert iterator, and now I'll put it in front of iter. So this also works when iterator is end. And the thing that we do add is value type of this container, filled with both the key and the data as a pair. Then of course key and data must exist. And this is the texture update request, so that is this variable here. So we need a key and a data function, member function in this type here. Yep. Okay, I need a key and data. And I forgot what the return type is and stuff. I forgot. It's more like I don't know what does it have to be. This is what is stored as the value type of this type, and I cannot jump to it because it's not highlighted. I did not run it through ctext yet, so I'll just write everything away, write ctext, make the ctext table again, and then edit it again, and now we can jump to it. This is a vector of a standard pair, so this is the first argument and that's the second one. So I must return this type from the key member function. Might as well add the other one directly. The data must return this. This is the second thing of the pair that the vector stores. So the value type is that pair. So I jump back to this one. And then that is the return type of data. Which is, I think, element of... Oh, this is just itself. Now I'm confused. Does that make sense? Why would I want to store the vector characteristic ID? I don't, not really. No, I just want to store the texture. So it makes more sense. Let's use this thing here as the accessor instead of data. Still have to fill in the key. Which means that I do not want to store texture update request here. I just want to store texture. Let me make sure again that that's exactly what it stores. It stores a shader resource texture. And this namespace here is currently a vulkan descriptor. So that's correct like that. Now my texture objects are involved, I think. And they contain like unique pointers, so I do not want to make copies of it and I lose the other pointers. But the lifetime of a texture should be long enough to use pointers everywhere. And what you store in a vector must be default constructible, so I'll just have to store a pointer to the texture here. Instead of a reference. I'm not sure that what I just said is correct. I'm so sure that somehow you can store movable objects. I don't think you can store references. Now this texture was returning a const reference, so I'll just have to really take a pointer to it, which is a bit ugly, so maybe I'll rename this to texture pointer, but it's almost as ugly. Maybe I should change the texture to pointer everywhere, because it does not make much sense to use a reference when I insist that it is a pointer to a canonical object that has a long lifetime. So on second thought, I'm going to make this also a pointer. And this too. And then this still works. The order of the initializer list must be the same as I think I just moved this, but let's just keep it like that. Or I have to swap this as well. Do I want to do that? Doesn't matter. I'll keep it like this. Okay, but now I broke absolutely everything, I think, in terms of compilation, but let's at least try to finish this key function. This has to return a factory characteristic key, which exists of an ID and a subrange. Now the ID is the factory characteristic ID, we have that. So we can construct it here. And then the arguments are the ID, factory characteristic ID. And here I have to pass a subrange, which I don't have. I need a subrange. So let's pass the subrange as an argument. And type of that subrange, oh, that was one word. Anyway, that's consecutive range, which can be passed by value and stuff. It's not very large. So the consecutive range here is being passed to the constructor of the factory characteristic key, which takes also the consecutive range by value. And then everything inlined, well, should work. But now I have to pass a consecutive range to my key function. So that would be here. And this is a new entry. Let's try to remember this. Consecutive range, subrange. We have to fill this subrange with something. What is a good range here? I think I just forgot to store them. It should be part of the texture update request. And I don't have to pass it. Haha. It should be an element of this thing, I think. Yeah. No, I'm not interested in passing sub-ranges yet. But I'm going to try to compile this as is. Fix all the compile errors. I cannot pronounce this. Factory characteristic key does not exist in namespace vulkan pipeline. Did you mean factory characteristic ID? No, we didn't. Well, missing header, I guess. It's defined in pipeline characteristic key. The next compile error is error invalid initialization of reference of type const vulkan shader builder shader resource texture reference const reference from expression of type texture pointer. Yeah, and so I got my pointers and my references confused now. I want to switch from one to the other. From the references to pointers. Probably run into that a few times more. Will run. Forgot to rename that for some reason. Text is not a member of Vulkan shader builder shader resource. Well, it is. Not a missing header. That is defined in that header. I don't have to include that here. Texture. Okay, wait a minute. Can just forward declare it because it's just a pointer. Not using it anywhere else. What is this? Using namespace shader builder. Oh, it's inside descriptor. Yeah, okay. For declare. So namespace vulkan shader builder shader resource. And the closing brace. And line hive here, class texture. Executor range was not declared in the scope. Vulkan pipeline. Consecutive range. Yeah. No matching function for call to key consecutive range reference. Oh, that's right. I don't want to pass it anymore. Change it back. Okay, who's seeing the missing? Oh, I see it. Yeah. In the middle of writing something, and then not even closing the brace. Cannot convert brace enclosed initializer list to texture update request. Yeah, that's also because now we take a texture pointer. At some point I have to switch to pointers, and this is in window. So this is the canonical vector with all my textures. So this is the point then where I have to make it a pointer, I guess. Cannot convert initializer list to texture update request. That's the same error. What is going on here? Initializing argument 1 of vulkan shader builder shader resource combined image sampler. Update image sampler. Vulkan descriptor texture update request. So this function takes a texture update request, and I'm now passing a pointer and a factory characteristic ID, I guess. And it has problems. It's not saying which. Well, initializer argument 1 of, yeah, the thing only has one argument. It's very unclear, so I think that the best thing to do is just tell it that I want it to be this thing, and then it will give me more information. Which thing? That thing. Okay. So now it's going to tell me why it can't create it. No mention function for call to texture update request. Candidate texture pointer. Oh, I need to pass in consecutive range. Yes, exactly. Yeah, now I'm not sure anymore why I wanted to run into this error. Because I deliberately did not add that other constructor yet. I don't know why not. So another constructor without the need for the subrange. And then we fill the subrange with the full range, which means that we have to create the consecutive range, which simply takes two ints, beginning and end, with the full range, which then obviously is 0 till the full size of the range, which is, well, hopefully part of the characteristic ID, and of course it is. That's the range size, and we can access it by calling that. Oh, full range, yeah. Sneaky, but better readable, I guess. So instead of 0 comma something, I just use the full range. A member function of the characteristic ID. And I guess we can remove this again. Now things compiled. So this is the first entry. That is the factory characteristic ID did not exist yet. So I just insert a new one. And otherwise, we found an entry with an existing factory characteristic ID. What to do in that case? Is it a full? I don't think it's a full key. Is it? It's not a full key. I'll think out loud so you can think along. I'm having in this vector that is this vector here. We have a pair of factory characteristic key, which is the same thing as the other one, plus a texture pointer, which is totally irrelevant here. It's just really about the characteristic key thing. And that key includes a consecutive range. What we found is a match by characteristic ID. So this thing matches, but the subrange is still unclear. So suppose the full range is 0 till 100. And we found an entry with the range 5 till 50, not including the 50. After that, we have an 80 till 100. But we found this one, because we always find the first one, right? And our own range is, well, let's say our own range is 50 till 80. Well, then it's clear what you have to do. We should insert it after this thing. But what if our range is well, it actually depends. Even if it is 60 till 80, I either have to insert it after or I have to merge it. I have to merge it with the left or the right one, so I need to iterate it to both. If it overlaps, then it must be merged with. So this range is 40 till 80. I must merge it with this one because it overlaps with that one. So it can overlap with one. It's not allowed to overlap with two. That's definitely not allowed. So what I can do, I think, is find the first element in the vector that is overlapping with my range, or that is less than the range that we find. So kind of the same constructors here, but we just continue. And this comment is not clear enough, so I'm just gonna delete it again, I guess. I'll delete it afterwards. So I'm going to do again while iterators will not reach the end yet. We do something and then we increment iter. We break out of it if while not something is less than something else. Let's see, break. In this case I'm looking for ranges, right? Not just ranges, however. I could find that the ID is no longer equal. I'm not convinced that I have an compare equal with the ID. Kind of need it or not? Yes, I have an equal. So I only want to continue in this loop while the vector characteristic ID is still equal. That means that, say, that one equals that one, I guess. Yeah, you only run over elements with the same ID, starting at the one with the smallest subrange. And now I want to find either subrange that overlaps, or a subrange that which means that it is equal, or the subrange that is less than the one in the iterator. So I'm gonna kind of do the same thing as here. And the subrange is part of the key. But then instead of calling, you can see the iterator is this thing. So first is the key, which is the factory characteristic here. And that has a subrange, for which we have an accessor. And by the way, the subrange can be compared with less than, and it's only less than if the end is less than or equal the begin of the next one. If you want to keep that in mind. To the subrange of the key. First was the key, subrange. And this one is then the texture update request subrange. Texture update request is having a subrange. I need to access that separately. Funny. Shift SP. Okay, so if not subrange is less than subrange, okay, it's not obvious even to me, so probably needs a new comment. I'll use the type like I did above. That's basically all. Let's get a wrench. That should go before the first range. And overlaps with the first range from the beginning. Overlaps completely. Overlaps partial at the end. Does not overlap. Well, let's say does not overlap at all. Or I can use 10. D does not overlap with the first one, but overlaps with the second one. And then we have a case where we want to insert 13. Does not overlap at all and goes at the end. These are different cases. Chef SP, 28 years. Okay, before I explain the algorithm in here in the comments, I'm gonna say what the objective is. So our range overlaps with any existing element. It may not overlap with more than one element. Now we have to extend the subrange of that element, and the descriptor must be replaced. If our range does not overlap, say Then it should be inserted as a new element. If the texture, texture. If the texture yeah, so it's not already. This is a new end if the texture is different, I guess, from the element before and after. If it is equal to one of those, it cannot be equal to both. I'm doubting that it cannot be equal to both. Well, it shouldn't. Yeah, actually it's not allowed to, a texture is not allowed at all to appear twice, no matter the order. I probably should check that as well. See if that requires a reformulation. Instead of being different from the element before and after it, well, that would be a way to speed things up, but in the end I should probably test it maybe in debug code. This is highly dubious. I'm thinking about, say you have an object and you have two textures on the object and you want to swap the textures. Then you would think that maybe I can just, to have an object, two faces. And there is a texture A on it and the other face has a texture B. And I want to change the object to look like this. With the algorithm that I just described, if I first change texture B to become texture A. Nah, that's nonsense. That would be a different factory ID. Or a different characteristic ID, or maybe not. Would be a different descriptor. But the worst thing that can happen is when you are coding this kind of difficult stuff for days and then discover that you made an error. A Thinko error. What I was going to say is that if that falls in the same characteristic factory characteristic key thing, and I would try to change the other A into B, then I would just change both, which is not what I want. So now I'm not sure anymore what I wanted to do, what I want to do here. Although you can argue, well, don't swap textures. Wouldn't be a big loss if that was not possible. But yeah. I'm just gonna finish this anyway. fixed. There, my comment is fixed. uh, so I think this is my objective. Okay, let's see. So okay, so this is the elements that we have, which with the same factory characteristic, and iterator is pointing to the first. We're considering case A. Then we are comparing 0.5 with 5.8, right? And since that should be less than. Yeah, this is less or equal. The end is less or equal than the beginning, then the range is less. So this thing is less. So this is true, and therefore with a not in front of it is false, and therefore do not break. So then we do plus plus iterator, and we go to the next one, this one. That feels incorrect. What am I doing wrong here? What I'm doing wrong is that I swap these two. I want to mirror this. The iterator goes first. Right, so we are comparing this one with this one. Well, that's definitely not less than. So the not is correct, and if we immediately break, and we get here with iterator pointing to that thing. And then we continue with if. I'm pretty sure the code is more or less the same thing. So I'm testing it with the end again. But this time we also have that. So or so just the not of this thing. That would be this first line, but it can also happen that this is the case. So I need another or. And we do the same compare with swapped elements. And so that must be the other way around. So this one is less than that one. I have an else here, I guess, or not. It's pretty difficult, isn't it? Okay, so case A is we break out of it immediately, and the iterator is pointing to the first element, which means it's not AND. It's still pointing to one that has the same factory characteristic ID, so it's not unequal. And now you compare our subrange as less than the subrange that we are pointing to, and that is the case. That is true. So we get here, and that means that this one does not overlap with that one. Therefore, we have to insert it before that one. Okay, unless this one has the same texture pointer. So I'm going to say new subrange, merge with iter if texture is the same. I'm just going to compare the texture pointers, I think. Yeah, okay, case B, overlapping. Now let me just look at the 3.6. So we're doing this one, and then the 3.6 is here, and the 5.8 is here. Is 5.8 less than 3.6? No. So this is false. And then the not is true. We break out of it immediately. So we break out of it again immediately with the iter pointing to 5.8. Iterator, if iterator is equal to end, no, or we left the building, no. And then we swap it. Is 3.6 less than 5.8? Also no, because they overlap. Therefore we come here. That means overlapping. Overlapping range. Check that. No. You can change the texture if you want. So just merge and update texture. Now this one is overlapping fully, and therefore it is also just simply not less than. This one is not less than 3, 8 is not less than 3, and 10 is not less than 5, so it doesn't really matter. It's just the same as the other one. And we also get here, also overlapping. This one is 7, 9. So 9 is not less than 5, and 8 is not less than 7, and therefore it's still overlapping. So just B is just the same case in all cases we get here. Now we get 8, 10. So okay, this is 5.8 less than 8.10, which is the same question as is 8 less than or equal 8? Yes, it is. So this is true. The not in front of it is false, therefore do not break. So we increment and we go to the next one, 10, 13. In this case, 10, 13 is not less than 8, 10. Therefore, we break, and now iterator is pointing to that one. And then we test the other way around. 10 is less than or equal 10, therefore it does not overlap. So, okay, let me do that correctly or exactly. And testing here is 8, 10 less than 10, 13. Yes. Okay, so I get here. Oh, that's correct. Yeah, it's a new. So now iter is pointing here, and we still get here. However, if texture is not the same, then I would have to still possibly merge with this one. And I would have to do that anyway if the texture was the same, I think. If the texture exists, then you just, you know, you lose, as it were. I don't think swapping textures or something like that is possible anyway. So the comment. Otherwise, possibly merge with the previous element, if any, if that has a texture. Point of that is the same. Now, the 811 is going to do the following. We go also to the next one, I guess, and then we see that it overlaps. And therefore, we should get here with either pointing to that one. And in the case of 1315, we just exit because of we reach the end. Or maybe there's an element after it with a different factory characteristic ID. And then we would not be equal to end, but then this would be unequal. So in both cases, that's gonna be true, and therefore new subrange. Iter is now end. And so we cannot not merge with it. So that can only merge when I can have. I have to check if that is. It's still the same thing. What is it? Same factory characteristic ID. Now just repeat this, I guess. This. Which is the case if we break. Shoot this. No. No, I don't. I don't know Russian, not even a well, yet. What else can we do? I have to go buy food, I think, otherwise the shop closes and I don't have food in the house. And I promised myself to take more breaks, so shorter streams. I need more movements in my painful joints. I'll just stop here and I'll just be back when I'm done eating or something. It's just the way it is.